Chapter 1. The Silver Cage. The needle bit into Maya's arm like a silver fong, and she welcomed the pain. Better this agony than the alternative, better the suppressant's burn than the beast's freedom. At 0400 hours, the USS Gerald R. Ford was a steel fortress cutting through dark Atlantic waters, but Maya Torres felt more exposed than ever. 3 days until the blood moon. 3 days until her sister's wedding. 3 days until everything she'd fought to control would try to break free. The injection trembled in her hand as she pressed the plunger. 25 years of this ritual, and each dose hurt more than the last. The military-grade suppressant coursed through her veins like liquid fire, designed to chain the wolf that prowled just beneath her skin. Commander Torres? Maya's head snapped up. Jake Mitchell stood in the doorway, his knowing eyes taking in the scene, the medical kit, the empty syringe, the way she gripped the rail like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Message from your mother, ma'am." Jake's expression was carefully neutral, but she caught the scent of his concern. Did he know? After 2 years as her second-in-command, how much had he guessed? Maya's phone buzzed. The text was brief and brutal. "Don't even think about wearing your uniform to the wedding. This is a family event, not a military parade. Try to look like a normal woman for once." The words hit her just as the suppressant's worst effects kicked in. Her hands shook, and she had to bite her lip to keep from crying out. The beast inside her raged against its chemical chains, and for a moment, Maya saw herself through different eyes, not the decorated naval officer, but the monster her family had always feared. "Ma'am?" Jake stepped closer, and she caught his scent more clearly now. Something wild and familiar that made her wolf stir with recognition. "I'm fine." She straightened, forcing her body to obey. "Just tired." But as Jake's eyes lingered on her face, she knew he saw through the lie. There was something in his gaze that spoke of shared secrets, of understanding that went deeper than military protocol. Hours later, memories crashed over her like rogue waves. The Orion incident. The submarine that wasn't supposed to be there. The experimental sonar that screamed through the water at frequencies designed to kill. She'd saved them, 3 crew members who'd been something more than human. Werewolves like her, caught in Blackwood's trap. The official report called it equipment malfunction. Maya called it attempted murder. The drive to Newport should have been peaceful. Highway 95 stretched before her, familiar and safe. But the 3 black SUVs that had appeared in her rearview mirror told a different story. Maya's enhanced senses picked up the scent first: musk in wild places, moonlight and running free. Other werewolves. The suppressants dulled her abilities, but not enough to miss this. They were hunting her. When she pulled over at a rest stop, heart hammering, the SUVs vanished like smoke. But their scent lingered, and with it, a promise. "We know what you are." The Hotel Viking rose before her like a fairy tale castle, all towers and elegance. Maya had booked a simple room, but the desk clerk smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, Commander Torres, but we've had to upgrade you to the penthouse suite. Complimentary, of course." Maya's blood chilled. She hadn't told them her rank. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to her own execution. The penthouse was beautiful, all windows and luxury, but Maya only had eyes for the bed. A single black rose lay on the pristine white pillow. The note beneath it was written in elegant script: "Welcome home, princess. The pack remembers." Maya's legs gave out. She sank onto the bed, the rose's thorns drawing blood from her shaking fingers. The suppressant injection site on her arm began to burn like acid, the chemical cocktail in her system suddenly feeling like poison. 25 years of running. 25 years of hiding. 25 years of pretending she was just another human woman in uniform. But the pack remembered. And they'd found her. The rose seemed to pulse in her hand, its petals dark as midnight, dark as the truth she'd been running from. Maya Torres, decorated naval officer, was about to face the one enemy she'd never been able to defeat, herself. Outside the penthouse windows, storm clouds gathered over Newport Harbor. In 3 days, the blood moon would rise, and with it, everything Maya had fought to suppress. The beast inside her stirred, recognizing the call of its own kind. She was no longer just a woman attending her sister's wedding. She was prey walking into a trap that had been 25 years in the making. The black rose dropped from her nerveless fingers, and Maya Torres finally admitted what she'd always known. Some prisons weren't made of steel and stone. Some were made of fear, denial, and the desperate hope that if you ran far enough, fast enough, you could escape what you were born to be. But the pack remembered. And they were calling her home. Chapter 2, Ghosts in Designer Dresses. The dead don't always stay buried, especially when they have unfinished business. Maya stared at her reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror, trying to recognize the woman looking back at her. The black cocktail dress hung perfectly on her frame, but it felt like a costume. She'd traded her uniform for civilian clothes, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was still wearing armor, just a different kind. The rehearsal dinner was in 30 minutes, and her hands were already shaking. Not from nerves about seeing her family, but from the suppressants fighting a losing battle against her biology. The blood moon was 2 days away, and her body knew it. She pressed her palm against the injection site on her arm, still burning from this morning's dose. The pain was getting worse, spreading like wildfire through her veins. How much longer could she keep this up? Her phone buzzed. Jake's name appeared on the screen with a simple message: "You look beautiful. Try to enjoy tonight." Maya's breath caught. How could he know what she was wearing? Unless, she moved to the window and peered down at the street below. There, a figure in a dark suit leaning against a lamppost. Even from this distance, she could make out Jake's familiar silhouette. He was watching over her. The thought should have been comforting, but it only raised more questions. What did Jake Mitchell really know about her? And why did his presence make her wolf stir with something that felt dangerously close to recognition? The Chandler at Cliff Walk was the kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. Maya stood in the doorway of the private dining room, watching her sister's rehearsal dinner unfold like a scene from a magazine. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory silk, and the guests moved with the practiced grace of people who'd been attending events like this their entire lives. Maya didn't belong here. She never had. Maya. Sophia Torres, soon-to-be Westbrook, glided over in a cloud of designer perfume and champagne-induced euphoria. "You made it. And you look." She paused, taking in Maya's simple black dress with barely concealed disappointment. "Nice. Congratulations, Sophia." Maya forced a smile and pulled out the carefully wrapped gift she'd brought. "I wanted to give you this tonight." The compass was antique brass, passed down through generations of naval officers. Maya had carried it through 3 deployments, and it had never failed to point her home. She thought Sophia might appreciate the symbolism, something to guide her through the uncharted waters of marriage. Sophia unwrapped it with polite interest, but the moment her fingers touched the brass, the compass began to glow with a soft silver light. Both women froze, staring at the impossible sight. How is it doing that?" Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. The glow faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving them both questioning what they'd seen. Sophia quickly rewrapped the compass and handed it back. "It's lovely, Maya, but I couldn't possibly accept something so valuable. It belongs in your family." The rejection stung more than Maya expected. She tucked the compass back into her purse, her enhanced hearing picking up the nervous flutter of Sophia's heartbeat. Her sister was afraid, but afraid of what? "Maya, darling." Her mother's voice cut through the ambient chatter like a blade. Victoria Torres approached with her arms outstretched, but her embrace was as cold as her smile. "You look appropriately dressed for once, Mother." Maya kept her voice level, though her wolf wanted to bare its teeth. Victoria had always had a talent for making her feel small, inadequate, wrong. "Come, sit with us." Victoria gestured toward a table near the back. "I've put you with the other friends of the family." "Not family. Friends of the family." Even at her own sister's wedding, Maya was relegated to the periphery. She took her assigned seat at a table filled with college friends and distant relatives, watching the real family celebrate at the head table. Her father, Thomas Torres, stood to make a toast. He was still handsome at 62, silver-haired and distinguished, the kind of man who commanded respect in boardrooms and country clubs alike. Maya had spent her childhood trying to earn his approval, and her adulthood trying to stop caring that she never had. To Sophia, Thomas raised his glass, his voice carrying easily through the room. "My beautiful daughter, who has always known her place in the world." The barb was subtle but unmistakable. Maya's fingers tightened on her wine glass as murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. She caught fragments of conversation that made her blood run cold. The failed experiment finally settled down. About time they contained the situation. Never thought she'd find someone willing to. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up every whispered word, every sideways glance. They were talking about her. They'd always been talking about her. Her gaze drifted to Sophia, radiant in her engagement dress, and Maya noticed something that made her stomach clench. The locket at her sister's throat, a delicate gold piece that caught the light in strange ways. As Maya watched, she could swear she saw a faint electrical current pulsing through the metal. She blinked, certain she was imagining things. But no, there it was again. A subtle glow that no one else seemed to notice. The locket bore an inscription too small to read from this distance, but Maya's enhanced vision caught two words: Blackwood Legacy Foundation. The name hit her like a physical blow. Blackwood. The same name from the Orion incident. The same name attached to the experimental sonar that had nearly killed those werewolves. What was Sophia doing with a locket from the Blackwood Foundation? And why was it giving off electrical signals? Maya's nausea intensified as her suppressants battled her rising anxiety. She needed air, needed space, needed to think. Excusing herself from the table, she slipped out of the dining room and into the restaurant's quiet corridors. The scent hit her immediately, wild and familiar, like pine forests and moonlight. Another werewolf had been here, recently. Maya followed the trail down a hallway lined with wine paintings, her instincts overriding her caution. The scent led her to a door marked, "Private, Staff Only." Maya's hand trembled as she turned the handle, expecting to find a storage room or office. Instead, she found a staircase leading down into darkness. The wine cellar had been converted into something else entirely. The walls were lined with silver, not decorative silver, but the kind of industrial plating that would burn supernatural skin on contact. This wasn't a wine cellar anymore. It was a holding cell. Maya's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "If you're reading this, you found the truth. Your mother died protecting secrets that certain people would kill to keep buried. The photo in your father's wallet isn't the only lie. A friend." Her hands shaking, Maya made her way back upstairs. The dining room felt suffocating now, full of people who might know more about her than she knew about herself. She spotted her father at the bar, his back to her, and made a decision that would change everything. "Dad?" She approached quietly, her enhanced hearing allowing her to catch the end of his phone conversation. "Yes, the subject is contained for now. The wedding will proceed as planned." "No, there's been no sign of the others." Thomas ended the call and turned, his expression smoothing into practiced charm. "Maya. Are you enjoying the dinner? I wanted to ask you something." She gestured to his jacket. "Could I see that photo of Mom you carry? The one from your wallet?" Something flickered in his eyes: surprise, fear, calculation. "What photo?" "The one where she has golden eyes and silver hair. I saw it once when I was little, but you never showed me others like it." Thomas's face went pale. Slowly, he reached into his jacket and withdrew his wallet. The photo was there, tucked behind his driver's license, a woman who looked nothing like the mother Maya remembered. This woman was ethereal, otherworldly, with eyes that seemed to glow with their own inner light and hair that caught moonlight like spun silver. "She's beautiful," Maya whispered. "But she doesn't look like the mother I remember." "People change," Thomas said quietly. Sometimes more than we realize. Before Maya could respond, a hand touched her shoulder. She spun around to find Captain Michael Reynolds, a man she'd never seen before but whose presence made her wolf stir with recognition. "Commander Torres?" His voice was low, carefully controlled. "I wonder if I might have a word with you privately." Maya glanced at her father, who had already pocketed the photo and was backing away. "I'll leave you two to talk," Thomas said, but his eyes held a warning that made Maya's skin crawl. Reynolds waited until they were alone before leaning closer. "Your mother saved my life once," he whispered. "She was hunting the same thing you are." Maya's world tilted. "What do you mean?" "She was tracking something, someone, who was using military resources to hunt supernatural beings. She died protecting that information." Reynolds glanced around the room, then back to Maya. "I think you know what I'm talking about." Maya's phone buzzed. This time it was Jake. "They have 3 of ours. Basement level. Silver chains." The message was followed by coordinates that Maya recognized. They were somewhere beneath this very restaurant. "I have to go," Maya said, her voice barely steady. "Be careful," Reynolds warned. "There are more players in this game than you know, and not all of them want you to survive the night." Maya moved through the dining room like a sleepwalker, past the laughing guests and clinking glasses, past her sister's radiant smile and her mother's watchful eyes. She found the service elevator and pressed the button for the basement level. The doors opened to reveal a corridor that belonged in a laboratory, not a restaurant. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows on walls lined with that same silver plating she'd seen in the wine cellar. Maya could smell them now: fear, pain, and the unmistakable scent of her own kind. 3 werewolves, just as Jake had said. But how did Jake know? And why was he helping her? She followed the corridor to a heavy metal door. Through the small window, she could see them, 3 figures chained to the walls with silver bonds that sizzled against their skin. They were barely conscious, their bodies racked with pain from the prolonged contact with the metal. Maya's hand was on the door handle when footsteps echoed behind her. She turned to find her father approaching, flanked by 2 security guards whose weapons gleamed silver in the harsh light. "I know what you're thinking, Maya," Thomas said calmly. "But if you go down there, you'll never come back up. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed." Maya's enhanced vision caught the details that would have escaped human eyes: the silver ammunition in the guards' weapons, the way her father's hands shook despite his steady voice, the scent of fear that clung to him like cologne. "You know what I am," she said. "It wasn't a question. I've always known what you are." Thomas's voice was infinitely sad. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The silver weapons were trained on her now, and Maya realized that everything, the wedding, the dinner, even the black rose in her hotel room, had been leading to this moment. She was caught between the prisoners who needed her help and the family who saw her as a threat to be contained. Behind her, she could hear the werewolves stirring, sensing the presence of their own kind. Their pain called to something deep in her soul, something that 25 years of suppressants couldn't quite silence. Maya Torres, decorated naval officer, stood at the crossroads of her life. On one side lay the world she'd built for herself, structured, controlled, safe. On the other lay the truth she'd been running from since childhood, wild, dangerous, and utterly beyond her control. The blood moon was rising, and with it, the beast she'd kept caged for so long. Tonight, she would have to choose which side of her nature would win. The silver weapons glinted in the fluorescent light, and Maya prepared to discover just how much of her humanity she was willing to sacrifice to save the lives of 3 strangers who shared her curse. Her father's eyes held a mixture of love and terror as he waited for her decision. "Choose carefully, Maya. There's no going back from this." Maya's hand tightened on the door handle. In the distance, she could hear the sound of the rehearsal dinner continuing, laughter and music and the celebration of a life she'd never been invited to share. She thought of Jake, watching over her from the shadows. Of Captain Reynolds and his cryptic warnings. Of her mother, who had died protecting secrets that might finally be coming to light. The silver burned her palm through the metal door handle, but Maya didn't let go. Some choices couldn't be unmade, and some truths couldn't be buried. The blood moon was calling, and Maya Torres was finally ready to answer. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Chapter 3, The Hunter's Moon. Every hunter becomes the hunted when the moon rises. Maya's palm burned against the silver-plated door handle, but she didn't let go. The metal seared through her skin like acid, each second of contact sending waves of agony up her arm. Behind the reinforced glass, 3 pairs of eyes stared back at her, human eyes and faces twisted with pain, but she could smell the wolf in them, the familiar scent of pack and kinship that made her own beast howl in recognition. Her father's voice echoed behind her, measured and clinical. "Step away from the door, Maya. You don't understand what you're dealing with." But Maya did understand. She understood that the 3 werewolves chained to the walls with silver bonds weren't random captives. She understood that the scent clinging to them was salt air and diesel fuel, the unmistakable signature of naval vessels. And she understood, with a certainty that made her stomach clench, that she was looking at her former crew members from the USS Orion. "Petty Officer Martinez," she whispered, recognizing the youngest of the 3 despite the silver burns that marred his face. "Seaman Rodriguez." And her breath caught. "Chief Warrant Officer Thompson." The third figure raised his head at the sound of his name, and Maya saw the moment recognition flared in his eyes. Thompson had been her sonar operator during the Orion incident, the one who'd first detected the anomalous readings that had led to their encounter with Blackwood's experimental weapon. He'd been the first to transform when the sonic pulses began, and Maya had saved his life by shutting down the system. Now he was here, in a laboratory disguised as a restaurant basement, being used as a test subject for the very technology that had nearly killed him. "You son of a bitch," Maya snarled, spinning to face her father. The silver burn on her palm was nothing compared to the rage burning in her chest. "You handed them over to Blackwood." Thomas Torres stepped back, his face pale but resolute. "They were already compromised. After the Orion incident, they couldn't be allowed to return to active duty. They're too dangerous." "Dangerous?" Maya's voice cracked with fury. "They're sailors. They're patriots. They served their country with honor, and you." "They're not human anymore," Thomas interrupted, his voice rising. "None of you are. The Orion incident changed you all, made you into something that can't be controlled, can't be contained. The Blackwood Foundation offers a solution." Maya's enhanced hearing picked up the subtle mechanical hum from the devices mounted on the walls around the prisoners. The sound was barely audible, but it made her wolf recoil in instinctive terror. These weren't just holding cells, they were testing chambers, designed to inflict maximum pain on supernatural beings. "What are those things?" she demanded, pointing at the silver-plated speakers embedded in the walls. "Sonic resonance generators," Thomas replied with the detached tone of a man discussing the weather. "They emit frequencies specifically calibrated to cause discomfort in lycanthropes. Dr. Blackwood's research has identified the exact pitch that triggers involuntary transformation." Maya's blood turned to ice. "You're torturing them into shifting." "We're studying them," Thomas corrected. "Learning how to predict and control their transformations. The military applications are." "Are you insane?" Maya's voice echoed off the silver-plated walls. "These men trusted me. They followed my orders. They believed in something bigger than themselves, and you turned them into lab rats." Her father's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. "Maya, you have to understand. What happened on the Orion, it wasn't an accident. It was a field test. The Blackwood Foundation has been developing supernatural detection and containment technology for decades. Your mother. Don't you dare bring her into this. Your mother was part of it," Thomas continued relentlessly. "She was the one who first identified the supernatural community's infiltration of the military. She was working with us to develop countermeasures." Maya's world tilted. Her mother, the woman she'd barely remembered, the ethereal figure from her father's hidden photograph, a collaborator with the very people who were torturing her kind? You're lying. Am I? Thomas reached into his jacket and withdrew a manila folder. These are her research notes. Her proposals containing the supernatural threat. She was the one who suggested using the military as a hunting ground. Maya's hands shook as she took the folder. The papers inside were covered in her mother's elegant handwriting, detailed anatomical drawings of werewolves in various stages of transformation, chemical formulas for silver-based compounds, and lists of military personnel suspected of supernatural heritage. But something was wrong. The writing was too neat, too clinical. Maya's enhanced vision caught the subtle differences in ink density, the slight variations in letter formation that spoke of careful forgery. This isn't her handwriting, she said quietly. Thomas's face flickered with uncertainty. What do you mean? I mean you're a terrible liar, Dad. Maya tore the folder in half, letting the fabricated documents flutter to the floor. Mom wasn't working with Blackwood. She was working against them. Before Thomas could respond, a new voice cut through the tension like a blade. Very good, Commander. I was beginning to wonder if you'd inherited your mother's intelligence along with her other traits. Maya spun around to find Captain Reynolds stepping out of the shadows, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a man in an expensive suit, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Even without an introduction, Maya knew she was looking at Dr. Marcus Blackwood himself. Dr. Blackwood, Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. I wish I could say it was a pleasure. Blackwood smiled, the expression cold and calculating. The feeling is mutual, I assure you. You've been remarkably difficult to track down, Commander Torres. Your mother's daughter indeed, she had the same talent for avoiding capture. Capture? Maya's wolf stirred, sensing the threat in the air. Oh yes, Blackwood continued, moving closer with predatory grace. Your mother was quite the prize. The alpha of the largest werewolf pack on the East Coast, masquerading as a Navy wife. She led us on quite the chase before we finally cornered her. Maya's blood turned to ice. You killed her. I defended my research, Blackwood corrected. Your mother and her pack were threatening to expose our work, to reveal the supernatural community's existence to the world. I couldn't allow that. The basement suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in around Maya like a silver cage. Her suppressants were failing, her body temperature rising as her wolf fought against the chemical restraints she'd imposed on herself for 25 years. Let them go, she said, nodding toward the prisoners. They're not part of whatever game you're playing. Oh, but they are. Blackwood produced a tablet from his jacket, swiping through what appeared to be medical readouts. These 3 are perfect test subjects. They've been exposed to our sonic weapons, survived the transformation triggers, and maintained their human consciousness longer than any previous subjects. They're invaluable to our research. Maya's enhanced hearing caught the sound of approaching footsteps from the corridor behind her. More guards, probably armed with the same silver ammunition that had been trained on her upstairs. She was trapped, surrounded, and rapidly losing the ability to control her transformation. There's something else you should know, Blackwood continued, his voice taking on a conversational tone that made Maya's skin crawl. Your 3 friends here aren't the only specimens we've collected from the Orion incident. We've been tracking down everyone who was exposed to our sonic weapons, everyone who survived the transformation process. He swiped to a new screen on his tablet, revealing a photograph that made Maya's heart stop. It showed a younger man, perhaps in his early 20s, with dark hair and golden eyes that were hauntingly familiar. He was chained to a wall much like the one behind her, his body covered in silver burns. Meet your half-brother, Dante, Blackwood said with evident satisfaction. Your mother's second child, raised by the pack after she abandoned them to play house with your father. He's been hunting for you for years, Commander. Family reunions can be so touching. Maya's world exploded into fragments of rage and disbelief. A brother. Her mother had another child, one she'd hidden from Thomas, hidden from everyone. And now he was here, another prisoner in Blackwood's twisted laboratory. Where is he? She demanded, her voice barely recognizable. Close, Blackwood replied. In fact, he's been instrumental in helping us locate you. You see, the pack bond is quite strong, even when artificially suppressed. We've been using his connection to you as a sort of supernatural GPS. Maya's suppressants finally reached their breaking point. The fire in her veins intensified, her vision sharpening as her wolf fought to break free. She could feel her canine teeth elongating, her fingernails hardening into claws. Maya, her father's voice cut through the haze of transformation. Please. Don't do this. We can work something out. The Foundation has resources, treatments that can help you control. Control? Maya laughed, the sound more growl than human mirth. You want to control me the way you controlled them? She gestured toward the prisoners, their silver chains glinting in the harsh light. The way you tried to control Mom? Your mother was dangerous, Thomas said desperately. She was going to expose everything. The supernatural community, the military's involvement, the research that could save lives. She was protecting her people, Maya snarled. She was protecting me. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing the basement in hellish red illumination. But in those few seconds of darkness, Maya heard something that made her heart soar, the sound of howls echoing from somewhere above them, multiple voices raised in a hunting song that spoke of pack and loyalty and vengeance. The pack has found you, sister. Maya spun toward the voice, her enhanced vision cutting through the dim lighting to focus on the figure who had spoken. It was one of the prisoners, not Martinez or Rodriguez or Thompson, but someone else entirely. Someone who had been hidden in the shadows, chained to the far wall where she couldn't see him. Dante. He was younger than she'd expected, barely out of his teens, but there was an ancient wisdom in his golden eyes that spoke of a childhood spent running with wolves. His dark hair was matted with dried blood, and silver burns covered his arms and chest, but he held himself with the natural grace of someone who had never doubted his true nature. But the question is, he continued, his voice carrying easily through the red-lit chamber, are you ready to lead them? Maya's suppressants finally gave up their 25-year battle. The pain that had been building in her veins suddenly exploded outward, and she felt her body begin to change. Her bones lengthened, her muscles expanded, and her senses sharpened to supernatural acuity. But this wasn't the controlled, clinical transformation she'd experienced in medical testing. This was primal, wild, and utterly beyond her control. Fascinating, Blackwood murmured, raising his tablet to record the transformation. A completely uncontrolled shift. The data from this will be invaluable. Maya's vision blurred as her eyes changed, her human sight giving way to the golden gaze of her wolf. She could smell everything now, the fear radiating from the guards, the antiseptic scent of the laboratory equipment, the silver burning against her brother's skin. But strongest of all was the scent of pack, of family, of home. Maya. Her father's voice was tinged with panic. Fight it. You can control this. But Maya was done fighting. She was done controlling. She was done pretending to be something she wasn't. The transformation completed itself in a rush of pain and power, leaving her standing in the ruins of her cocktail dress, her body caught between human and wolf. She was larger than a normal wolf, her muscles more developed, her claws and teeth designed for killing rather than hunting. This was what she truly was, not a decorated naval officer, not a dutiful daughter, but a weapon forged in silver and suppression. Hello, sister, Dante said softly. Welcome home. Maya's response was a howl that echoed off the silver-plated walls, answered immediately by the pack above. They were here, her mother's children, ready to reclaim what had been stolen from them. The hunt was about to begin. But before she could move, before she could free her brother and the other prisoners, footsteps echoed in the corridor behind her. Maya turned, her wolf instinct screaming danger, to see a familiar figure stepping into the red-lit chamber. Jake Mitchell. Her second in command, her trusted friend, the man who had been watching over her from the shadows. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood 3 men in tactical gear, their weapons trained on Maya with the practiced precision of professional soldiers. I'm sorry, Maya, Jake said, his voice heavy with what might have been genuine regret. But some orders are bigger than friendship. He raised his own weapon, a silver-loaded tranquilizer gun designed specifically for supernatural targets. Maya could smell the chemical cocktail in the darts, a mixture of sedatives and silver compounds that would put her down without killing her. "You," she snarled, her voice distorted by her transformation. "You've been working for them all along." "I've been doing my job," Jake replied. "Protecting national security. Protecting the country from threats like you." Maya's world shattered. Jake, who had known her for 3 years, who had watched her back through 2 deployments, who had saved her life more times than she could count, he was one of them. He was part of the machine that had destroyed her family, that had tortured her people, that had turned her into a weapon against her own kind. "You son of a bitch," she whispered. "I never wanted it to come to this," Jake said, his finger tightening on the trigger. "But you made your choice when you came down here. You chose them over us." Maya's muscles tensed, preparing to leap, to fight, to die if necessary. But before she could move, the emergency lighting failed completely, plunging the basement into absolute darkness. In the blackness, she heard Dante's voice, soft and certain. "The pack has found you, sister. But the question is, are you ready to lead them?" Maya's suppressants were gone, her human facade finally stripped away. Her wolf was free, her true nature unleashed after 25 years of captivity. Above them, the howls grew louder, closer, more insistent. The hunt was about to begin, and Maya Torres, daughter of the Alpha, leader of the lost, hunter of the hunted, was finally ready to answer the call of her blood. In the darkness, she smiled, bearing fangs that gleamed like silver in the non-existent light. The blood moon was rising, and with it, the reckoning that had been 25 years in the making. The pack was home, and they were hungry for justice. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Chapter 4, Blood and Silver. Asterisk, when the monster comes out, heroes are made or broken. Asterisk. The darkness lasted exactly 17 seconds. Maya counted each heartbeat, each breath, each moment of perfect silence before the world exploded into chaos. The emergency lighting flickered back on just as the first werewolf crashed through the reinforced glass of the basement window. The creature was massive, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with midnight black fur and a muzzle crisscrossed with old scars that spoke of battles fought and won. Its eyes burned like molten gold as it landed among the startled guards, claws raking across tactical gear as if it were paper. Maya's transformation had been violent, painful, a ripping apart of everything she'd tried to suppress for 25 years. Her body stretched and expanded, bones lengthening with audible pops, muscles bulging beyond human proportions. When it was over, she stood nearly 7 feet tall, her form caught between human and wolf, her claws tipped with silver that gleamed like starlight. Her eyes blazed with the same ethereal light, the mark of alpha blood running true. "The pack has come for you, little sister," Dante said, his voice carrying easily through the chaos as more werewolves poured through the basement entrance. "But the question remains, are you ready to lead them?" Maya's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of battle from the floors above. Screams, gunfire, the crash of breaking glass and splintering wood. The wedding guests, her sister's friends, her family, were caught in the crossfire of a war that had been brewing for generations. "The humans," she snarled, her voice distorted by her transformation. "They're innocent in this. Are they?" Blackwood's voice cut through the din as he backed against the far wall, his tablet clutched in his hands like a shield. "Your father knew what you were. Your stepmother-to-be has been wearing a supernatural tracker around her neck for months. Even your precious second-in-command was following orders," Jake Mitchell interrupted, his weapon now trained on Blackwood instead of Maya. "Orders from someone who's been waiting a very long time to settle accounts." Maya's world tilted again. Jake's betrayal had been theater, a performance designed to get him close to the hunters. But if he wasn't working for Blackwood, then who? The scarred black wolf let out a howl that reverberated through the basement like thunder. The sound was answered by a dozen voices from throughout the building, a hunting song that spoke of pack and loyalty and vengeance long delayed. As the echoes faded, the great wolf began to shift, his form rippling and changing until a man stood where the beast had been. Maya's breath caught in her throat. The man was ancient, his silver hair matching the scars that decorated his weathered face, but his golden eyes burned with the same fierce intelligence she'd seen in her dreams. He was tall and lean, his body marked with the ritual scars of a pack leader, and when he smiled, Maya saw the same fangs that now filled her own mouth. "Hello, granddaughter," he said, his voice carrying the weight of mountains and the whisper of wind through old forests. "I've been waiting a very long time to meet you." "Grandfather?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "But you're supposed to be dead." The records said. The records say what they needed to say. He stepped forward, moving with the fluid grace of a predator despite his apparent age. "I've been in hiding, waiting for you to come into your power. Waiting for the blood moon to rise and the pack to reunite." Thomas Torres pressed himself against the silver-plated wall, his face pale with recognition and terror. "Marcus Wolfsbane," he breathed. "You're supposed to be dead. We had confirmation." "You had what I wanted you to have," Marcus replied, his tone conversational despite the chaos raging around them. "Bodies can be faked, records can be altered. I've had decades to perfect the art of staying hidden." Sophia's locket pulsed with renewed intensity, its electrical current now strong enough to make the air itself hum. Maya's enhanced senses picked up the device's true purpose. It wasn't just tracking supernatural beings, it was broadcasting their locations to every hunter in a 50-mile radius. "The locket," she said, pointing at the device around her stepmother's neck. "It's calling them here." "A beacon," Marcus confirmed, his expression darkening. "Blackwood's been using civilians as bait for years. The wedding was never about your sister's happiness, it was about drawing you out of hiding." Above them, the sounds of battle intensified. Maya could hear her pack engaging with professional hunters, the clash of claw against silver, the bark of weapons designed to kill supernatural beings. Wedding guests screamed as they fled through emergency exits, their designer dresses and expensive suits no protection against a war they didn't understand. "We have to get them out," Maya said, her alpha instincts overriding her personal fury. "The humans don't deserve to die for our war." "War?" Blackwood laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "This isn't a war, Commander. This is an extermination. Your kind has hidden in the shadows for too long, infiltrating our military, our government, our very way of life. Tonight, we finally have the tools to end the threat permanently." He pressed a button on his tablet, and Maya heard a high-pitched whine building in the walls around them. The sound was barely audible to human ears, but it made every werewolf in the room stagger. The silver-plated speakers she'd noticed earlier were activating, their sonic resonance generators powering up with lethal intent. "Did you really think you were the only one with family secrets?" Blackwood continued, his voice rising above the growing mechanical whine. "I've been hunting your bloodline for 3 generations. Your mother was just the beginning. Tonight, I finish what I started." The frequency hit like a physical blow. Maya's grandfather collapsed, blood streaming from his ears as his body convulsed. The other werewolves throughout the building howled in agony, their enhanced hearing turning against them as the sonic weapons reached full power. But Maya remained standing. Her 25 years of suppressance, her forced adaptation to human technology, her lifetime of fighting her own nature, it had all been preparation for this moment. She was immune to the frequency that was killing her pack, her body too changed by years of chemical alteration to be affected by weapons designed for natural werewolves. "Impossible," Blackwood breathed, his face pale with shock. "The frequency should be killing you." "I'm not like them," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the sonic assault. "I'm not natural. I'm what you made me, a weapon forged in silver and suppression, designed to survive whatever you could throw at me." She moved faster than human eyes could follow, her silver-tipped claws raking across the nearest speaker array. The device exploded in a shower of sparks, its destruction causing the frequency to fluctuate wildly. Around the room, the other werewolves gasped in relief as the pressure on their enhanced hearing eased. "Jake!" Maya called out, her voice carrying the authority of an alpha giving orders. "Get Dante and the others out of those chains." I'll handle the speakers. But Jake was already moving, his service weapon targeting the silver-plated restraints with precision shots that shattered the locks without harming the prisoners. He moved with the fluid confidence of someone who had been planning this rescue for years, his earlier betrayal revealed as the deepest kind of loyalty. The rest of the pack? Maya asked her grandfather as she helped him to his feet. Regrouping, Marcus replied, his voice hoarse from the sonic assault. We've secured the upper floors, but Blackwood's hunters are better prepared than we anticipated. They have silver ammunition, sonic weapons, and enough firepower to level the building. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up the approaching footsteps of tactical teams, their heavy boots echoing in the corridors above. The hunters were falling back to prepared positions, using the wedding guests as human shields while they brought their heaviest weapons to bear. They're hurting us, she realized. Driving us toward a kill zone. The ballroom, Blackwood said, his voice filled with malicious satisfaction despite his desperate situation. I have 30 hunters positioned there, all armed with silver core ammunition and sonic grenades. Your pack will walk into a slaughter. Maya's wolf snarled, her instincts screaming for her to tear out Blackwood's throat. But her human mind, trained by years of military service, recognized the tactical situation. Her pack was outnumbered, outgunned, and walking into a trap. They needed a different approach. There's another way, she said, her voice carrying the certainty of command. Jake, how many of our people are in the building? 12 pack members, plus your grandfather, Jake replied without hesitation. But Maya, the odds are irrelevant, Maya interrupted. This isn't about odds. This is about family. She turned to face her grandfather, her golden eyes blazing with the same fierce light that had marked her mother's line for generations. You said I was ready to lead them. Were you right? Marcus studied her face, seeing something there that made him nod slowly. You have your mother's courage, he said. And your father's tactical mind. Yes, granddaughter. You're ready. Maya's transformation had been violent and painful, but it had also been liberating. For the first time in 25 years, she wasn't fighting her nature, she was embracing it. The alpha blood in her veins sang with power, connecting her to every member of her pack, allowing her to sense their positions, their injuries, their readiness to fight. Then let's show them what happens when you corner a wolf, she said, her smile revealing fangs that gleamed like silver stars. Jake, signal the pack. We're not running from this fight, we're taking it to them. But even as she spoke, Maya knew the real battle was just beginning. Blackwood's sonic weapons were only the first wave of his assault. Whatever he had planned for the ballroom would be far worse, and the innocent wedding guests caught in the crossfire would pay the price for a war that had been brewing since before she was born. The blood moon was rising, and with it, the reckoning that would determine the fate of both species. Maya Torres, daughter of the Alpha, leader of the lost, hunter of the hunted, was finally ready to claim her birthright. But first, she had to survive the night. As the pack prepared for their final assault, Maya caught sight of her father's face in the red emergency lighting. Thomas Torres was staring at her with an expression that combined terror, recognition, and something that might have been pride. He had always known what she was, what she could become. The question was whether he would stand with her or against her when the moment of truth arrived. In the distance, the howls of her pack echoed through the Hotel Viking, answered by the sharp crack of gunfire and the screams of the innocent. The war between species had finally begun, and Maya Torres stood at the center of it all, a weapon forged in silver and suppression, ready to lead her people home. The hunt was about to reach its bloody conclusion. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Chapter 5, The Alpha's Gambit. Asterisk, in the eye of the storm, love and loyalty are the only weapons that matter. Asterisk. The Hotel Viking's grand ballroom had been transformed into a war zone. Crystal chandeliers hung in shattered pieces, their remains scattered across marble floors slick with blood. Wedding guests huddled behind overturned tables, their designer gowns and tailored suits torn and stained, their faces masks of terror as they tried to comprehend the nightmare that had erupted around them. Maya Torres stood in the doorway, her enhanced senses cataloging every detail with military precision. 30 hunters positioned at strategic points throughout the room, their weapons trained on the terrified civilians. Silver core ammunition glinted in the dim emergency lighting, and she could smell the metallic tang of sonic grenades clipped to tactical vests. This wasn't just a trap, it was a massacre waiting to happen. But it was her sister Sophia who broke Maya's heart. The bride cowered behind the head table, her wedding dress torn at the shoulder, her face streaked with tears and mascara. The golden locket at her throat pulsed with electronic malevolence, its signal broadcasting their location to every hunter within 50 miles. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up her sister's rapid heartbeat, the sharp intake of breath that preceded a scream. "Please," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. "Please don't hurt them. Whatever this is about, it's not their fault." Maya's wolf stirred with protective fury, but her human mind remained coldly analytical. Sophia didn't know. Despite wearing Blackwood's tracker, despite being engaged to a man who had betrayed them all, Maya's sister was an innocent caught in a web of deception that stretched back generations. "She's right," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom as she stepped into the killing field. "This isn't about them. It's about me." The hunters shifted at her appearance, their weapons swinging toward her with practiced precision. But Maya could see the uncertainty in their movements, the fear that rippled through their ranks as they faced something they'd been trained to hunt but never expected to encounter. She was larger than their intelligence had suggested, more powerful, more dangerous. The silver tips of her claws caught the light like stars, and her golden eyes blazed with the ancient authority of an alpha awakening to her true nature. "Commander Torres," Dr. Blackwood's voice echoed from hidden speakers, his tone carrying the satisfaction of a man who held all the cards. "How good of you to join us. I was beginning to think you might disappoint me." "I'm full of surprises," Maya replied, her enhanced hearing tracking the source of his voice to a protected observation booth overlooking the ballroom. "But then, you already knew that, didn't you?" Her grandfather Marcus appeared at her side, moving with the fluid grace of a predator despite the blood still trickling from his ears. The sonic assault had weakened him, but his eyes burned with the same fierce intelligence that had kept him hidden for decades. Around them, the rest of the pack took their positions, Jake Mitchell flanking their left, Dante and the rescued prisoners covering their right, and the other werewolves spreading out to create a protective circle around the trapped wedding guests. "You've grown into your power beautifully," Marcus murmured, his voice pitched from Maya's ears alone. "Your mother would be proud." "My mother is dead because of him," Maya snarled, her gaze fixed on the observation booth where Blackwood watched them like specimens in a laboratory. "And he's going to pay for that tonight." But even as she spoke, Maya's tactical mind was working. The ballroom was a death trap, designed to funnel them into a killing field where Blackwood's hunters could use their superior numbers and firepower to maximum effect. The wedding guests were positioned as human shields, their presence preventing the pack from using their natural advantages of speed and ferocity. It was a brilliant tactical arrangement, the work of someone who had been studying werewolf behavior for decades. "He's not just a scientist," Maya realized, her voice tight with growing understanding. "He's a soldier. Military trained, probably special forces. He knows how we think, how we fight." Marcus Blackwood, her grandfather confirmed, his own voice heavy with old pain. "Former Army Rangers, psychological warfare specialist. He's been hunting supernatural beings for 40 years, using military tactics adapted for civilian operations. Your mother wasn't his first kill, and you won't be his last." Maya's enhanced hearing picked up the subtle sounds of movement from the floors above. More hunters were taking positions, their heavy boots echoing in the hotel's corridors as they prepared for the final assault. The pack was outnumbered 3-1, trapped in a killing field with innocent civilians as collateral damage. "We need to get them out," she said, indicating the terrified wedding guests. "The humans don't deserve to die for our war." "Agreed," Marcus replied. "But how do we move 30 civilians through a building full of hunters without getting them killed?" Maya's gaze swept the ballroom, her enhanced vision cataloging every exit, every piece of cover, every tactical advantage they might exploit. The main doors were blocked by hunters, the windows were too high and too narrow, and the service corridors were almost certainly monitored. But there was one possibility, a route that Blackwood might not have considered. "The kitchen," she said, her voice carrying the authority of an alpha giving orders. "Commercial buildings always have service elevators for deliveries. If we can get them to the kitchen, we can evacuate them through the freight elevator." "That's assuming the elevator isn't trapped," Jake pointed out, his weapon trained on the hunters while he kept one eye on the civilians. "Blackwood's had months to prepare for this. He'll have contingencies." "Then we make our own contingencies," Maya replied, her wolf stirring with the thrill of battle. "Jake, can you get a message to the pack outside? Tell them we need a distraction in exactly 10 minutes. Something loud and obvious to draw the hunters away from the service areas." "Already on it," Jake said, touching the comm unit at his ear. "But Maya, even if we get the civilians out, we're still trapped in here with 30 hunters and enough firepower to level the building." Maya's smile was all teeth and starlight. "Let me worry about that." She moved through the ballroom with predatory grace, her enhanced senses tracking every hunter, every weapon, every potential threat. The wedding guests shrank back as she approached, their terror palpable in the air like a physical force. But Maya's focus was on her sister, still huddled behind the head table with tears streaming down her face. "Sophia," Maya said softly, kneeling beside the bride. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. In a few minutes, there's going to be a lot of noise and confusion. When that happens, I need you to take everyone through the kitchen doors and down to the freight elevator. Can you do that for me?" Sophia's eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. "Maya? What's happening? What are you?" "I'm your sister," Maya replied, her voice gentle despite the chaos around them. "I'm the same person who taught you to ride a bike, who helped you with your homework, who walked you down the aisle when Dad couldn't make it to your first wedding rehearsal. The only difference is that now you know why I could never stay in one place for very long." "You're one of them," Sophia whispered, her gaze fixed on Maya's golden eyes. "You're a monster." The words hit Maya like a physical blow, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I'm a protector," she said. "I'm someone who's spent her entire adult life keeping people like you safe from people like him." She nodded toward the observation booth where Blackwood watched them with cold satisfaction. "And right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and 30 men who would kill you just to get to me." Understanding dawned in Sophia's eyes, followed by a courage that Maya recognized from their childhood. Her sister had always been the brave one, the one who stood up to bullies and defended the underdog. That same strength was surfacing now, even in the face of her worst nightmare. "The locket," Sophia said, her hand moving to the golden chain at her throat. "He gave it to me. He said it was a family heirloom, but it's been making me feel sick ever since I put it on." "It's a tracker," Maya explained, her claws carefully cutting through the chain without touching the device itself. "It's been broadcasting your location to his hunters. That's how they found us." The locket fell to the marble floor with a soft chime, its electronic pulse finally going silent. Around the ballroom, Maya heard the subtle shift in the hunters' positions as they lost their primary targeting signal. The advantage was small, but it was something. "When I give the signal," Maya continued, "I want you to lead everyone to the kitchen. Don't look back, don't hesitate, just run. Jake will be with you to make sure you get out safely." "What about you?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling with fear that wasn't entirely for herself. Maya's expression softened, and for a moment, she was just a big sister trying to protect her family. "I'm going to do what I was trained to do," she said. "I'm going to end this war before it kills anyone else." The explosion came exactly 10 minutes later, a thunderous crash that shook the hotel to its foundations. Maya's pack had blown the main electrical transformer, plunging the building into darkness and creating the chaos she needed. Emergency lighting flickered on a moment later, but the confusion was enough to give her the opening she required. "Now," she shouted, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "Everyone move." The wedding guests surged toward the kitchen doors, their terror overriding their confusion as they followed Sophia's lead. Jake moved with them, his weapon providing cover as they fled through the service corridors. But Maya's attention was already focused on the hunters, who were repositioning themselves to intercept the fleeing civilians. She moved faster than human eyes could follow, her silver-tipped claws raking across the nearest hunter's weapon and rendering it useless. The man stumbled backward, his face pale with shock as he realized he was facing something far more dangerous than his training had prepared him for. "You want me, Blackwood?" Maya called out, her voice echoing through the ballroom like thunder. "Then come and get me. But leave the innocent people out of this." "Innocent?" Blackwood's voice crackled through the speakers, his tone filled with malicious amusement. "Your sister has been wearing my tracker for 3 months, Commander. She's been part of this operation from the beginning, whether she knew it or not. And your father, well, he's been feeding me information about your pack's movements for years." Maya's world tilted. Her father, the man who had raised her, who had taught her about duty and honor and protecting the innocent, he had been working with Blackwood all along. The betrayal cut deeper than any silver blade, striking at the very core of who she thought she was. "You're lying," she snarled, but even as she spoke, she could smell the truth in the air. Her enhanced senses picked up the subtle changes in her father's scent, the markers of guilt and shame that he had been carrying for years. "Am I?" Blackwood's laughter was cold and cruel. "Ask him yourself. He's been watching from the observation booth, documenting your transformation for my research. Every injection you've taken, every suppressant that's failed, every moment of pain you've endured, it's all been part of his report." Maya's gaze swept to the observation booth, her enhanced vision cutting through the darkness to focus on the figure standing beside Blackwood. Her father, Thomas Torres, stood with his shoulders hunched and his face twisted with anguish. But in his hands was a tablet, its screen filled with data about her transformation, her pack, her every weakness. "Dad?" Maya's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried clearly through the ballroom. "Tell me he's lying." Thomas Torres looked down at her, his face pale with shame and regret. "I'm sorry, Maya," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of 25 years of deception. "I'm so sorry. But they had your sister. They said they would kill her if I didn't cooperate." The truth hit Maya like a physical blow. Her father hadn't betrayed her out of malice or greed, he had done it to protect Sophia. The same protective instinct that drove Maya to risk everything for her pack had driven her father to sacrifice her for her sister. It was a choice no parent should have to make, and it had destroyed them all. "Touching," Blackwood said, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "A family reunion built on decades of lies and betrayal. But I'm afraid the time for revelations has passed. You've walked into my trap, Commander, and now it's time to finish what I started with your mother." The sonic generators throughout the ballroom began to hum with lethal intent, their frequency building toward the pitch that would kill every werewolf in the room. But Maya was already moving, her enhanced speed carrying her toward the observation booth where Blackwood waited with his finger on the trigger. She had been forged in silver and suppression, shaped by years of pain and betrayal into something far more dangerous than any natural werewolf. She was the alpha her pack needed, the weapon her enemies had created, and the daughter who would not let her family's sacrifices be in vain. The blood moon was rising, and with it, the reckoning that would determine the fate of both species. Maya Torres was finally ready to claim her birthright, but first, she had to survive the trap that had been 25 years in the making. The hunt was about to reach its bloody conclusion, and Maya Torres, daughter of the Alpha, leader of the lost, hunter of the hunted, was finally ready to end the war that had stolen her childhood, her family, and her humanity. But as the sonic generators reached their killing frequency, Maya realized that her immunity to the weapons might not be enough to save her pack. The question was whether she was willing to sacrifice everything, including her own life, to protect the people she loved. In the distance, her grandfather's howl echoed through the hotel, a sound of pain and defiance that spoke of a pack leader watching his family die. Maya's wolf answered with a roar that shook the very foundations of the building, a promise of vengeance that would echo through the supernatural world for generations to come. The final battle had begun, and Maya Torres stood at the center of it all, a weapon forged in love and loss, ready to lead her people home or die trying. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Chapter 6, The Devil's Bargain. Sometimes the only way to save everyone is to damn yourself. The sonic generators reached their killing frequency, and Maya's world exploded into crimson rage. The sound tore through her enhanced hearing like glass shards, but instead of the debilitating agony that dropped her grandfather to his knees, it triggered something far more dangerous. 25 years of suppressed alpha power, generations of genetic memory, and the primal fury of a pack leader watching her family suffer, it all crystallized into a berserker state that transformed Maya into something beyond werewolf, beyond human, beyond control. Her body expanded past the limits of her previous transformation, muscles bulging with supernatural strength as silver-tipped claws lengthened into weapons of pure destruction. Her golden eyes blazed with an inner fire that seemed to burn the very air around her, and when she opened her mouth, the sound that emerged was less howl than roar, a primal scream of rage that shattered every piece of glass in the ballroom. Maya. Jake's voice cut through the chaos, but she was already moving, her enhanced speed carrying her toward the nearest hunter with murderous intent. Her claws raked across his chest, tearing through tactical gear and flesh with equal ease. The man's scream was cut short as he collapsed, his lifeblood spreading across the marble floor in a pool of crimson accusation. But Maya's berserker rage made no distinction between friend and foe. Her enhanced senses were overwhelmed by the smell of blood and fear, her alpha instincts reduced to their most basic imperative: eliminate all threats to the pack. When a wedding guest, a middle-aged woman in a torn blue dress, stumbled into her path, Maya's claws swept toward her throat without hesitation. No. Jake threw himself between them, his body taking the blow meant for the innocent woman. Maya's claws raked across his ribs, sending him sprawling across the marble floor with a grunt of pain. The sight of his blood on her hands should have brought her back to sanity, but the berserker state was too strong, too consuming. She turned toward the fallen wedding guest, her golden eyes blazing with predatory hunger. The woman cowered beneath Maya's transformed bulk, her face pale with terror as she stared up at the creature that had once been her sister's protector. Behind her, a small child, perhaps 7 years old, with wide dark eyes and a torn flower girl dress, peeked out from behind an overturned table. Maya's claws rose again, driven by instincts that recognized only threat and prey. The child's scream echoed through the ballroom, a sound of pure innocent terror that cut through the berserker rage like a silver blade. For a moment, Maya's golden eyes flickered with recognition, with horror at what she was about to do. Sister. Dante's voice cracked like a whip, carrying the authority of pack hierarchy and blood bonds. You are not an animal. You are Alpha. You are Protector. But even his words couldn't fully penetrate the crimson haze that had consumed her. Maya's pack members began to retreat, their enhanced senses warning them that their leader had become something far more dangerous than any hunter. Her grandfather Marcus limped backward, his ancient eyes filled with a sadness that spoke of watching his bloodline consume itself. The berserker state, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the chaos. I've seen it once before, in your mother. It's the curse of our bloodline, power without control, strength without wisdom. There's a way to stop it, Dante said, his young face grim with terrible knowledge. A binding ritual that can contain the alpha power, but what? Jake demanded, pressing a hand to his bleeding ribs as he struggled to his feet. It requires a blood sacrifice, Dante replied, his golden eyes fixed on Maya's berserker form. From her human family. The binding can only be performed by those who share her blood but not her curse. Thomas Torres stepped forward from the observation booth, his face pale with understanding. You're talking about killing someone. Not killing, Dante corrected. Binding. The ritual would drain enough life force to contain her power, but the donor would survive. They would be, diminished, but alive. Maya's enhanced hearing caught their conversation even through the berserker rage, and some part of her recoiled at the implications. To save innocent lives, her family would have to sacrifice themselves. Her father, her sister, one of them would have to give up their humanity to contain her monstrous nature. There has to be another way, Sophia said, her voice trembling with fear and determination as she emerged from the kitchen doorway. The wedding guests had been evacuated, but she had returned, drawn by the same protective instinct that drove Maya to violence. She's my sister. There has to be something we can do. There is, Blackwood's voice echoed through the ballroom, his tone filled with malicious satisfaction. But you won't like it. The hunters had pulled back, forming a defensive perimeter around the ballroom's exits while Maya raged at its center. But Blackwood himself descended from the observation booth, his movements confident despite the supernatural fury mere yards away. You see, Commander Torres, he continued, his voice carrying easily through the chaos, your berserker state is exactly what I've been working toward. Not to destroy you, but to harness you. To make you mine. He pulled a device from his jacket, a crystalline apparatus that pulsed with dark energy. Maya's enhanced senses recoiled from it instinctively, recognizing something fundamentally wrong with its existence. 25 years ago, I made a bargain with an entity far older and more powerful than any werewolf, Blackwood explained, his eyes gleaming with fanatic fervor. The Shadow Walker feeds on supernatural energy, and in exchange for my service as its hunter, it grants me immortality and power beyond human comprehension. The crystal in his hand pulsed brighter, and Maya felt something tugging at her essence, trying to drain the very life from her berserker form. But her mixed heritage, the combination of werewolf strength and human adaptability, made her resistant to the device's influence. That's why you've been hunting us, Marcus realized, his voice heavy with understanding. Not to protect humanity, but to feed this creature. The Shadow Walker requires supernatural energy to maintain its existence in our realm, Blackwood confirmed. Werewolves, vampires, fae, all serve as sustenance for its hunger. But an alpha in berserker state? That's a feast worthy of a god. Maya's rage intensified at his words, her golden eyes blazing with fury at the revelation that her people had been murdered not for ideology, but for the hunger of some ancient horror. She moved toward Blackwood with killing intent, but the crystal device flared brighter, sending waves of draining energy that sapped her strength. You can't have her, Thomas Torres said, stepping between them. She's my daughter. Is she? Blackwood's smile was cold and cruel. Tell me, Thomas, have you ever wondered why Maya's suppressants worked when no other werewolf could tolerate them? Why she's immune to sonic weapons that cripple her pack? Why her berserker state is so much more powerful than any other alpha in recorded history? Thomas's face went pale, and Maya caught the scent of fear and shame rolling off him in waves. What are you talking about? You're not entirely human, Thomas, Blackwood revealed, his voice filled with malicious delight. You're a descendant of the original hunters, the Van Helsing bloodline, bred for centuries to track and kill supernatural beings. But somewhere in your ancestry, the blood was contaminated. Dormant supernatural genes that should have been purged long ago. Maya's berserker rage flickered with confusion as the implications sank in. Her father, the man who had betrayed her to protect her sister, carried the same curse that ran through her veins. Her mixed heritage, werewolf alpha power combined with hunter instincts, made her uniquely dangerous, uniquely powerful. That's why the binding ritual won't work, Dante said, his young face grim with terrible understanding. She's not just werewolf. She's something new, something that's never existed before. The perfect weapon, Blackwood agreed. And the perfect sacrifice for my master. The crystal device in his hand pulsed again, and Maya felt another wave of draining energy wash over her. But this time, something else came with it, a presence that made her very soul recoil in horror. The temperature in the ballroom plummeted, and shadows began to gather in the corners like living things. No, Marcus whispered, his ancient eyes wide with terror. You didn't just make a bargain with it. You brought it here. The shadows coalesced into a form that defied description, a creature of pure darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. It had no fixed shape, shifting between human and animal and something altogether more terrible. But when it spoke, the voice that emerged was hauntingly familiar. Hello, daughter, it said in tones that Maya remembered from childhood lullabies and bedtime stories. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Maya's berserker rage shattered like glass, replaced by a horror so complete that her transformed body began to shrink back toward human form. The voice belonged to her mother, Elena Torres, the woman who had supposedly died when Maya was 5 years old. Mom? Maya's voice was barely a whisper, the word torn from her throat like a physical wound. Not quite, the Shadow Walker replied, its form rippling with dark amusement. But close enough. You see, your mother made her own bargain 25 years ago. She offered herself as a vessel for my consciousness in exchange for your protection. She's been trapped in my realm ever since, watching you grow, waiting for the day when you would be strong enough to serve as a proper host. Maya's world tilted on its axis. Her mother wasn't dead, she was imprisoned within this creature of darkness, her consciousness trapped in a realm of shadows and pain. Every injection Maya had taken, every suppressant that had failed, every moment of suffering she'd endured, it had all been leading to this moment. She's been fighting me for decades, the Shadow Walker continued, its voice shifting between Maya's mother's gentle tones and something far more sinister. But her will is finally breaking. Soon, she'll be nothing but a memory, and I'll be free to claim what she promised me, her daughter's body as a permanent vessel. Never, Maya snarled, her protective instincts overriding her horror. I won't let you have her. You don't have a choice, the Shadow Walker replied, its form beginning to solidify into something more recognizably human. The binding ritual your brother described? It would only delay the inevitable. Your mixed heritage makes you the perfect host, strong enough to contain my power, human enough to walk among mortals without suspicion. Maya looked around the ballroom at the faces of her pack, her family, the innocent people who had been caught in the crossfire of a war that had been raging for generations. Her grandfather Marcus, bleeding from his ears but standing proud. Her brother Dante, young and fierce and ready to fight. Jake, wounded but loyal, his eyes filled with a love that transcended species. Her sister Sophia, terrified but brave, clutching their father's hand. And her father Thomas, the man who had betrayed her to protect her sister, who carried the same cursed blood that ran through her veins. Choose, the Shadow Walker said, its voice echoing with the authority of something far older than human civilization. Accept the binding ritual and watch your mother's consciousness fade forever, or embrace your destiny as my vessel and save her soul. Maya's berserker rage was gone, replaced by a clarity that cut through her like a silver blade. She had been forged in suppression and pain, shaped by betrayal and loss, but she was still her mother's daughter. Still the alpha her pack needed. Still the protector who would sacrifice everything for the people she loved. The choice before her was impossible, damn herself to save her mother, or damn her mother to save the world. But as she looked into the Shadow Walker's shifting form, she saw something that gave her hope. Behind the darkness, behind the ancient malevolence, she caught a glimpse of golden eyes filled with love and pride. Her mother was still fighting, still protecting, still refusing to surrender even after 25 years of imprisonment. And Maya Torres, daughter of the Alpha, leader of the lost, hunter of the hunted, was finally ready to join the battle for her mother's soul. The blood moon reached its zenith, and with it, the moment of choice that would determine the fate of every supernatural being in the world. Maya stepped forward, her golden eyes blazing with the same fierce determination that had marked her bloodline for generations. I choose neither, she said, her voice carrying the authority of an alpha who had finally claimed her birthright. I choose to fight. The Shadow Walker's laughter echoed through the ballroom like the sound of breaking glass, a promise of pain and darkness that would echo through the supernatural world for generations to come. Maya's berserker rage was gone, but in its place was something far more dangerous, the cold, calculating fury of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The real battle was about to begin, and Maya Torres stood at the center of it all, a weapon forged in love and loss, ready to face the darkness that had stolen her mother and threatened her world. Chapter 7, Shadow and Flame. Asterisk, the greatest battles are fought not with claws and teeth, but with love and sacrifice. Asterisk. The Shadow Walker's realm wasn't the hell Maya had expected. It was worse, it was a perfect replica of her childhood home, complete with the white picket fence and her mother's rose garden. But the roses were black, their thorns dripping with something that looked suspiciously like blood, and the windows of the house stared out like dead eyes. Maya's feet touched the ground with a sensation like walking on broken glass. The transition from the hotel's basement to this twisted dimension had been jarring, like being turned inside out and reassembled wrong. Her alpha power thrummed beneath her skin, but here it felt muted, constrained by the realm's dark energy. "Welcome home, darling." The voice came from the front porch, and Maya's heart clenched. Her mother sat in the old wooden swing, looking exactly as she had 25 years ago, auburn hair catching phantom light, green eyes bright with intelligence and warmth. But when she smiled, her teeth were too sharp, and shadows moved beneath her skin like living things. "You're not her," Maya whispered, but even as she said it, she knew it was both true and false. This was her mother, and it wasn't. "I'm exactly who I've always been," her mother said, rising from the swing with fluid grace. "The question is, who are you, Maya? Are you the frightened little girl who let them pump poison into her veins for 25 years? Or are you the alpha who's finally ready to claim her birthright?" Maya's claws extended involuntarily. The scent here was wrong. Everything smelled of copper and roses and something else, something ancient and hungry. "Where's the shadow walker?" Her mother laughed, a sound like silver bells and screaming. "Oh, sweetheart. You still don't understand, do you?" She gestured to the twisted landscape around them. "This is all the shadow walker. Every blade of grass, every corrupted memory, every moment of pain you've carried, it's all part of the entity. And so am I." The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. Her mother hadn't been trapped by the shadow walker, she had become part of it. The entity had consumed her, integrated her essence into its very being. The woman standing before her was both her mother and the creature that had been hunting supernatural beings for decades. "No," Maya breathed, but the evidence was everywhere. The familiar tilt of her mother's head, the way she hummed under her breath when she was thinking, the scar on her left hand from when Maya had accidentally bitten her as a child, all of it was real. All of it was corrupted. "I've been waiting so long for you to come home," her mother said, stepping closer. "Do you know what it's like, watching your daughter deny her nature? Watching her inject herself with poison rather than accept what she is? I've been trapped in this realm for 25 years, Maya, and every single day I've felt your pain. Every injection, every moment of self-hatred, every time you looked in the mirror and saw a monster instead of a miracle." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the bond that connected her to the real world, she could feel the battle raging in the hotel. Jake's terror, Dante's desperation, the human guest's panic, it all crashed over her in waves. Her pack was dying while she stood here listening to ghost stories. "I have to go back," she said, taking a step toward what she hoped was the exit. "My pack needs me." "Your pack?" Her mother's laugh was bitter now. "You mean the werewolves you've been hiding from your entire life? The ones who only want you because you're an alpha? They don't love you, Maya. They love your power." "That's not true." But even as Maya said it, doubt crept in. Had any of them tried to find her before she'd been forced to transform? Had any of them cared about the scared young woman injecting herself with suppressants in a desperate attempt to be normal? "Isn't it?" Her mother moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of her childhood, vanilla and lavender and something uniquely maternal. "Tell me, when was the last time someone loved you for who you are, not what you can do for them? When was the last time someone held you while you cried? When was the last time you felt truly safe?" The questions hit like physical blows because Maya couldn't answer them. She'd spent so long building walls, being strong, being the perfect soldier, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be vulnerable. To be loved unconditionally. "I love you," her mother whispered, reaching out to touch Maya's face. "I've always loved you. From the moment you were born, I knew you were special. Not because you were an alpha, because you were mine. My daughter. My precious girl." Maya's vision blurred. The touch was warm, familiar, everything she'd been missing for 25 years. "Mom? I'm here, baby. I'm finally here." Her mother's arms wrapped around her, and Maya felt herself melting into the embrace. "I know you're scared. I know you're tired. But you don't have to fight anymore. Stay with me, and we can be together forever. No more pain, no more loneliness, no more pretending to be something you're not. It would be so easy. So simple. Maya could feel her mother's heartbeat, could smell the familiar scent of her skin. All she had to do was let go. Let the shadow walker take her, and she could have her mother back. She could have the childhood she'd lost, the love she'd been denied. But then she heard it, Jake's voice, desperate and raw, cutting through the realm's seductive whispers like a blade. Maya. Don't do it. It's a trap. The words shattered the illusion like glass. Maya jerked back from her mother's embrace, her enhanced senses suddenly sharp and clear. The scent wasn't vanilla and lavender, it was decay and hunger and something else, something that made her wolf recoil in horror. You're not my mother, Maya said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. You're using her memory to manipulate me. Her mother's face twisted, the loving expression melting away to reveal something alien and terrible. I am your mother, you ungrateful little bitch. I am her love, her pain, her desperate need to save you from yourself. I am everything she ever was, perfected and eternal. No, Maya said, backing away. My mother would never try to trap me. She would never ask me to abandon my pack. She died trying to protect others, she wouldn't want me to become a monster. The thing wearing her mother's face snarled, and suddenly the perfect suburban illusion cracked. The house began to rot, paint peeling away to reveal writhing shadows beneath. The roses in the garden withered and died, their thorns growing longer and sharper. The sky darkened until it was the color of old blood. You don't get to choose, the shadow walker hissed, its voice a harmony of screams. You are mine. You have always been mine. From the moment you were born, I have been waiting for you to ripen, to come into your power. Do you think it was coincidence that your mother was killed? Do you think it was chance that led you to the Navy, to Jake, to this moment? I have been orchestrating your entire life, little Alpha. Every choice you thought you made was mine. Maya's wolf rose within her, no longer suppressed or controlled. Silver light blazed from her eyes as she faced the creature that had destroyed her family. Maybe you have been pulling the strings. Maybe every choice I made was part of your plan. But there's one thing you didn't count on. And what's that? Maya smiled, and it was all teeth and fury. I'm not just my mother's daughter. I'm not just an Alpha. I'm a Torres, and we're too stubborn to know when we're beaten. The shadow walker shrieked and lunged, but Maya was ready. She'd spent 25 years suppressing her nature, fighting against her instincts, denying what she was. But she wasn't suppressed anymore. She was an Alpha, the daughter of an Alpha, the granddaughter of a legend. And she was done being afraid. She met the creature's charge head-on, her claws raking across its face. It felt like fighting smoke and nightmares, but Maya had been fighting nightmares her whole life. The shadow walker might have her mother's memories, but it didn't have her mother's heart. It didn't understand what it meant to choose love over fear, sacrifice over safety. The battle was brutal and vicious, more psychological than physical. For every blow Maya landed, the shadow walker showed her another memory, her father's disappointment, her sister's fear, Jake's moment of betrayal. But Maya pushed through each psychic assault, holding on to the truth she'd finally learned. She wasn't a monster. She was a protector. And protectors didn't abandon their people. With a roar that shook the foundations of the realm, Maya drove her claws into the shadow walker's chest. The creature screamed, its form beginning to dissolve, but Maya didn't stop. She reached deeper, past the corruption and hunger, searching for the part of her mother that might still exist. And found it. Deep in the shadow walker's heart, wrapped in chains of despair and guilt, was a spark of pure love. Her mother's soul, not consumed but imprisoned, forced to watch as her essence was used to hurt others. Mom, Maya whispered, her claws transforming into gentle fingers as she touched the spark. I'm here. I'm going to get you out. The chains were made of every moment of self-hatred Maya had ever felt, every injection of suppressant, every time she'd looked in the mirror and seen a monster. But they were also made of love, twisted and corrupted, but love nonetheless. And Maya finally understood what she had to do. She had to forgive herself. The chains shattered like glass, and her mother's soul blazed bright as a star. For one perfect moment, Maya felt her mother's presence, whole and uncorrupted. She felt her mother's love, her pride, her absolute faith in the woman Maya had become. "I'm so proud of you," her mother whispered, her voice carried on winds that smelled of roses and hope. "My brave, beautiful girl. You are everything I ever hoped you would be." And then she was gone, not consumed but freed, passing into whatever came after. The Shadow Walker's realm began to collapse, reality reasserting itself as the entity's power crumbled. Maya found herself back in the hotel basement, gasping and shaking. The battle above had paused, as if everyone sensed something fundamental had changed. Jake was kneeling beside her, his face white with terror and relief. "Maya? Are you okay? What happened?" She looked up at him, and for the first time in 25 years, she wasn't afraid of what he might see. "I found my mother," she said simply. "And I let her go." But even as she spoke, she could feel Blackwood's presence above them, sense his fury and desperation. The Shadow Walker might be gone, but the hunter was still very much alive. And he still had her pack, her sister, her father, everyone she'd sworn to protect. Maya stood, her movements fluid and controlled. The alpha power no longer felt like a burden or a curse. It felt like coming home. "It's time to end this," she said, her voice carrying the authority of generations of pack leaders. "Blackwood has been pulling our strings for too long. Tonight, we cut them all." Jake nodded, his hand moving to his weapon. "What's the plan?" Maya smiled, and there was nothing human in it at all. "We go upstairs. We save our people. And we show Blackwood what happens when you threaten a Torres family." As they climbed the stairs toward the final confrontation, Maya felt the last of her self-doubt fade away. She was an alpha. She was a protector. She was her mother's daughter. And she was done running from who she was meant to be. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Chapter 8. True strength isn't in the power you wield, but in the family you choose to protect. The hotel basement had become a battleground of shadows and silver light. Maya stood at the epicenter of it all, her alpha power blazing like a star as she faced the writhing remnants of the Shadow Walker. The entity had been weakened by her mother's liberation, but it wasn't destroyed, it was desperate, cornered, and infinitely more dangerous. "You think you've won?" The Shadow Walker's voice was a chorus of screams and whispers, its form shifting between Maya's mother's face and something that belonged in nightmares. "You think freeing one soul matters? I have consumed thousands. I am eternal. I am inevitable." Maya could feel the entity's hunger pressing against her mind, searching for weakness, for a way in. Above them, the sounds of battle continued, snarls, gunshots, the crash of furniture being thrown. Her pack was fighting for their lives while she stood here facing an ancient evil that had orchestrated her entire existence. "Maybe you are eternal," Maya said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "But you made one mistake. You thought I was like you, hungry for power, willing to sacrifice others for my own gain. But I'm not. I'm my mother's daughter." The Shadow Walker laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your mother was weak. She chose love over power, sacrifice over survival. Look where it got her, dead at 27, leaving behind a daughter who spent 25 years hating herself." "She wasn't weak," Maya said, taking a step forward. Silver light poured from her skin, pushing back the darkness. "She was strong enough to love unconditionally. Strong enough to die protecting others. Strong enough to resist you for 25 years while you used her memory to hurt people." The entity recoiled, its form flickering. "You cannot defeat me, girl. I am made of every dark thought you've ever had, every moment of self-hatred, every time you looked in the mirror and saw a monster. I am your shadow, your other half. Without me, you are nothing." Maya smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "You're right. You are part of me. You always have been. But here's what you don't understand, I'm not trying to defeat you. I'm trying to save you." The Shadow Walker's form solidified, confusion replacing its usual malevolence. Save me? You're not just some ancient evil, Maya said, her voice gentling. You're the collective pain of every supernatural being who's ever been hunted, every person who's ever been forced to hide what they are. You're the shadow cast by centuries of fear and hatred. But shadows can't exist without light. She opened her arms, and the silver radiance around her intensified. You want to possess me? Fine. But I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to embrace you. Because if I'm going to bridge the gap between worlds, I need to understand both sides, the light and the dark. No. The Shadow Walker lunged forward, but instead of attacking, Maya opened herself to it. The entity slammed into her consciousness like a tidal wave of darkness, but Maya didn't resist. She welcomed it, absorbed it, made it part of herself. The pain was indescribable. Every moment of suffering the Shadow Walker had ever consumed flooded through her, centuries of persecution, fear, death. But with the pain came understanding. The entity wasn't evil by nature, it was a repository of trauma, a manifestation of the damage done by fear and hatred. Maya felt herself changing, evolving. The Shadow Walker's darkness merged with her silver light, creating something new, not werewolf, not human, but a perfect synthesis of both. She was becoming what she'd always been meant to be, a bridge between worlds. The transformation sent shockwaves through the hotel. Upstairs, the fighting stopped as both sides felt the shift in power. Maya could sense her pack's confusion, Jake's terror, Blackwood's rage. But she could also feel something else, hope, flickering like a candle in the darkness. When the light faded, Maya stood transformed. Her hair had streaks of silver now, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. She was still recognizably herself, but she was also something more, something unprecedented. Impossible, the Shadow Walker whispered, but its voice was different now. No longer malevolent, but curious. You didn't fight me. You accepted me. Why? Because fighting yourself is exhausting, Maya said simply. And because someone has to be the first to choose love over fear. My mother showed me that. She could have let hatred consume her after you took her, but she chose to love instead. She chose to believe in a better world. The Shadow Walker, no longer a separate entity but part of Maya's consciousness, fell silent. For the first time in centuries, it felt something other than hunger and rage. It felt peace. Maya turned toward the stairs, her movements fluid and controlled. She could feel the Shadow Walker's power flowing through her, but it no longer felt like a curse. It felt like a gift, the ability to understand darkness without being consumed by it. The scene that greeted her in the hotel's main dining room was chaos. Tables were overturned, chandeliers shattered, and the elegant wedding reception had become a war zone. Her pack, larger than she'd realized, werewolves she'd saved over the years who'd tracked her here, was locked in combat with Blackwood's hunters. The human wedding guests huddled in corners, their faces masks of terror and confusion. At the center of it all stood Blackwood himself, a silver sword in his hand and madness in his eyes. He'd abandoned all pretense of humanity, his face twisted with centuries of hatred and obsession. Finally, he snarled when he saw Maya. The prodigal daughter returns. Come to watch your precious pack die? Maya surveyed the battlefield with new eyes. She could see the fear in everyone, pack and hunters alike. They were all trapped in a cycle of violence that had been going on for generations, each side convinced the other was the enemy. No, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. I came to end this. Blackwood laughed, raising his sword. End this? Girl, this war has been going on for millennia. You think one half-breed alpha can stop it? I'm not just an alpha anymore, Maya said, and let her new nature show. Silver light poured from her skin, but it wasn't harsh or blinding. It was warm, welcoming, like moonlight on water. I'm something new. Something that's never existed before. The fighting stopped. Everyone, werewolf and human alike, stared at her in awe. Maya could feel their fear beginning to transform into something else. Wonder. Hope. "You're an abomination," Blackwood spat, but his voice lacked conviction. "A corruption of the natural order." "No," Maya said, walking toward him. "I'm evolution. I'm what happens when someone chooses love over fear, unity over division. I'm what you could have been if you'd chosen differently." Blackwood raised his sword, but Maya was faster. Not because she was stronger or more skilled, but because she wasn't fighting him. She was embracing him, just as she'd embraced the Shadow Walker. Her arms wrapped around the old hunter, and silver light enveloped them both. Blackwood screamed, expecting to be destroyed, but instead he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: peace. Maya's new nature touched the part of him that had once been human, the part that had started hunting out of fear rather than hatred. "I know what you've seen," Maya whispered in his ear. "I know what made you afraid. But the war doesn't have to continue. We can choose differently." For a moment, Blackwood's face softened. Maya saw the scared young man he'd once been, the one who'd lost everything to a werewolf attack and dedicated his life to revenge. But then the moment passed, and his eyes hardened again. "It's too late," he said, pulling away from her. "I've done too much, hurt too many. There's no redemption for me." "There's always redemption," Maya said. "But it has to be your choice." Blackwood looked around the room at the faces watching him: werewolves he'd tortured, humans he'd lied to, a world balanced on the edge of revelation. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time in centuries, he looked old. "I choose to surrender," he said quietly, letting his sword clatter to the floor. "I choose to end this." A collective sigh went through the room. The war that had defined so many lives was over, not with victory or defeat, but with a choice to stop fighting. Maya turned to address the room, her voice carrying to every corner. "For too long, we've lived in shadows," she said. "Humans fearing what they don't understand, supernaturals hiding from persecution. But hiding hasn't made us safer, it's made us strangers to each other." She gestured to the mixed crowd around her: werewolves, humans, even a few hunters who'd laid down their weapons. "Tonight, you've seen that we're not so different. We all love, we all fear, we all want to protect the people we care about. The only difference is what we're willing to do about it." An elderly human woman, one of the wedding guests, stepped forward hesitantly. "You're saying you want to come out? Tell everyone about all of this?" Maya nodded. "Not everyone is ready for the truth. But some are. And those who are ready can help build bridges for the others." "And if they react with fear?" asked one of the werewolves. "If they try to hunt us?" "Then we'll face that together," Maya said. "Not as separate species, but as one people. Because that's what we are, we're all just people trying to find our place in the world." Over the next hour, Maya worked with both sides to establish a tentative peace. The hunters who'd been operating on Blackwood's orders were given a choice: continue the war on their own or help build something better. Most chose to help. The werewolves, exhausted by centuries of hiding, were eager to try a different approach. The human wedding guests were the wild card. Some fled in terror, and Maya let them go. Others stayed, curiosity overcoming their fear. A few, like Captain Reynolds, revealed they'd suspected the truth for years and were relieved to finally have it confirmed. As dawn approached, Maya found herself on the hotel's balcony, looking out over Newport Harbor. The blood moon was setting, its red light fading to the soft gold of sunrise. Jake joined her, his face still showing the strain of the night's events. "So what happens now?" he asked. "You can't exactly go back to pretending to be normal." Maya smiled, feeling the Shadow Walker's presence within her, no longer an enemy but a part of her consciousness, a reminder of the darkness she'd chosen to embrace rather than fight. "Normal was never an option for me. But for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that." "The Navy's not going to know what to do with you," Jake said with a weak laugh. "Then I'll help them figure it out," Maya said. "Someone has to be the first. Someone has to show that different doesn't mean dangerous." 6 months later, Maya stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise, watching the sun set over the Pacific. The ship's crew was a mix of humans and supernatural beings. The Navy's first integrated supernatural unit, established after Maya's revelation, had sent shockwaves through the military and civilian worlds alike. The transition hadn't been easy. There'd been protests, congressional hearings, and more than a few attempts to have Maya court-martialed. But there had also been support, from humans who were tired of living in fear, from supernatural communities who were ready to stop hiding, and from military leaders who recognized the strategic advantage of having enhanced soldiers who were loyal to their country. "Captain Torres," Jake said, approaching with a tablet in his hand. He wore the insignia of a commander now, having been promoted after his role in the Newport incident had been revealed. "We've got incoming messages from supernatural communities in Japan, Brazil, and Scotland. They're all asking for the same thing." Maya took the tablet, scrolling through the messages. Vampires in Tokyo dealing with exposure, were jaguars in the Amazon facing encroachment on their territory, selkies in the Scottish Highlands struggling with pollution in their waters. All of them looking for someone who could help them navigate the changing world. "Looks like we're going to be busy," Maya said, handing the tablet back. "Set course for Tokyo. It's time to expand our horizons." As the ship changed course, Maya felt the Shadow Walker's presence stirring within her consciousness. But it wasn't malevolent anymore, it was curious, eager to see what new challenges awaited them. Together, they'd faced their past. Now it was time to build their future. The blood moon had risen and set, but Maya Torres, the Silver Alpha, the bridge between worlds, the first of her kind, was just beginning her real work. The supernatural world had been hidden for too long. It was time to step into the light. And as the stars appeared in the darkening sky, Maya smiled. Her mother had been right, she was exactly who she was meant to be. Not human, not werewolf, but something new. Something hopeful. Something that could change the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an update.